Hey, this is Tyler with TJack Survival. I am here at the Orem Preparedness Fair, and we're going to learn really quick at the booth. Hi, guys. Back here with Emberlit, we're going to learn really quick how to make some charred punk wood, so stay tuned.
Okay, well, we're over here in our booth, and I'm just doing a demonstration on some of the options that you have with flint and steel fire. A lot of people think you have to have charred cloth to catch a spark, which is somewhat true. You have to have charred material, any sort of charred biological material. So, what I'm showing off here...
Biological, like plant?
Plant,
or...
yeah.
Okay.
People won't work, obviously. So,
unfortunately.
You know, organic material, I guess you could say. And so... one of the things that, from what I've learned, again, you know, YouTube's a wonderful resource. This is punk wood. This is dry rotted cottonwood, and it's very, very light. It's very spongy. It's a lot like styrofoam, and so it works wonderfully for catching a coal. And what I did with this is I had another fire going. Obviously, you had to prepare your tinder with fire. It's kind of ironic, but I charred this punk wood. And once it was charred, I just smothered it inside the tin, and now it should catch a spark. Let's see if I get lucky on the first try. I never do. It's good. We'll
get well until you're filming, and then suddenly
honestly,
it's like,
yeah,
it's killing me.
So what I'm going to do is, a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but one method is when you're holding your char cloth on the stone, you're actually striking down with the striker. But I want to drop a spark onto that piece of wood, and it's too bulky to hold in my hand, so I'm going to flip my hands over, I'm now going to hit the stone against the steel.
Cool.
See how I'm dropping sparks downwards? So that's just another method to put the sparks where you want. So if I can hit it in the right spot on this piece of wood, it will turn into an ember. So here we go. Oh, there it is.
Bam.
Shower of sparks.
That is awesome.
So the idea being, you know, the people that depended on this method for fire, cloth was a commodity. You know, cloth was hard to get. It was expensive. And so, like me, they would wear their clothing and it was literally tatters. They'd try to mend it as best they could. They would use it until it was no longer functional as clothing. And then after it was no longer good for clothing, they would cut it up into rags, and it was no longer good for rags. They would turn it into those like rag carpets, or, you know, even worse uses. And finally, they would char it and use it as tinder to start their fire, but they would keep this in the house. You know, they would keep it where it was convenient to start the fire for the cooking in the kitchen and warming the home, because it's very easy to use, and again, it's a valuable commodity. So when they were out in the field, when they were traveling, rather than using that nice cloth, they would just continue to collect pieces of punk wood like this. And this is kind of old stuff right here, but it'll work. But this is everywhere, and it's free. And you would just take a chunk of this, they would toast it like a marshmallow over the fire, and they would put it back in their char tin. And as you can see, this stuff smokes really well, and it keeps going.
Good to keep the mosquitoes away.
Yeah, it'll keep mosquitoes away. But another thing is, if you're making beef jerky, like if you're making like traditional jerky, smoked meat or something outside, take a chunk of this and you light it and you put it underneath your tripod where you have your meat hanging. And it'll smoke and smoke and smoke, and it does a wonderful job. It gives a good flavor, honestly. But yeah, this is called punk wood or touch wood. It's just dry rotted cottonwood. And I've seen it work with other species, but my favorite is cottonwood.
So how do you make this stuff?
How do you make the punk wood, or how do you make the...
So we collect the punk wood.
Yeah.
Do you have to prepare it before it's going to take a spark like that?
Just like you saw me do, where I was taking one coal and transferring it to the uncharred punk wood.
Yep.
And now I'm snuffing it, what we charred, to prepare the next bunch.
So you just keep putting fresh pieces in there, and that coal will catch that one, and so on and so forth. If you want to do a big piece really quick, just to start off with, if you have a campfire, you can take this thing and just hold it over the campfire until it's engulfed in flame. Or you can take one of these magic lighters. You know, hey.
Shh, don't tell.
No cheating. No cheating.
No, but
Anyways.
if you're going to prepare it, this is good to know.
Well, the thing is you have to prepare charred cloth with fire. So
Yeah.
the idea being, if you're starting with nothing, you better get your bow drill or your hand drill or whatever, get a fire going, then char some punk wood, and the next time you have to make fire, it's going to be infinitely easier. So it's all about preparation. But all I got to do is
Burn it black like that.
yeah, I'll let it go, and you'll notice it'll. See where you can see it's already turning red, those little coals? Those are the best parts. And since it's punk wood, it won't go out. It'll continue to smolder like that. So I have to, in order to put it out properly, there we go.
Suffocate it.
You have to suffocate it, because if you crush it, there we go. If you crush it, it'll ruin the ability for it to catch a coal, because you want that real fluffy, kind of like a fluffy carbon matrix. I imagine if you were to look at that punk wood under a microscope, it would look like a mesh screen. So it's got structure, but it allows oxygen to get in there. And it's the same thing with char cloth. If you make char cloth out of jeans or some really tightly woven fabric, dropping a spark onto it you won't have as high a chance of catching that fabric unless you tear the edge.
So this is a jeans material here. So you have to separate that so you have more oxygen getting to those fibers.
Yeah, right along that ragged edge is usually where the spark will catch. Otherwise, if you're trying to drop a spark onto it, it's such a tight weave that they're just going to bounce off before they catch anything. Well, I need a big enough piece, but okay. Anyways, let me show them this though. So this right here, that is the piece that we just charred. It's ready to go, and I will show you. So I grab my stone and my.
What kind of rock is that? Or what are the characteristics we're looking for in a rock?
Honestly, I don't know what this is. It might be jasper. It's pretty.
Yeah.
What I have found is, in general, I look for a rock that has a ceramic consistency to it. Now,
So ceramic like
glass, like clay, like it's been.
Like your coffee mug.
Yeah, like,
Yes.
it has to have. If it looks like it's made out of sand that's been stuck together, it's not going to work very well at all. If it looks like it's an aggregate of a bunch of different stones, it's not going to work. It has to be very hard.
Glassy.
Yeah, glassy. That's the way to do it. And I found that with that, I got about 80% success rate. Some of it's too brittle to work, but I don't even know. Like I said, I don't know what stone this is, but this one works really well.
All right.
And so I'm going to drop a spark right there. Yeah, there we go. Got 2 spots.
And it'll spread like wildfire.
Literally, and that's all
No
it takes.
pun intended, right?
Yeah. And so, and I can have, what's nice, what I like to do anyway, is I have my tinder tin, and I got my big chunk of charred punk wood, and I don't want to put that in my tinder nest and blow on it, because then I'll just use it up. So I'll break another piece off, or take another piece out of the nest, the tinder box. And that's all I need right there. Now I can set this aside, honestly. Put this back in there before the fire alarms go off.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Fire marshal will be like, that's pretty cool, but here's your fine. Anyways, so this little piece is still going. So I can use that little piece and put that in my tinder nest and blow it into flame without having to use up the rest of my nice charred punk wood.
Awesome.
It's just a very versatile thing. And it's everywhere. It's free, And there's a lot of materials like this that work. There's a lot of materials in nature that work this way. This is just the best one I found so far.
Cottonwood?
Yeah, cottonwood. Just dry rotted cottonwood and box elder seem to be the magic,
And what was the other one?
Box elder.
Awesome.
Because they're
You could do white pine, water birch,
Yeah.
any of the softer woods, but they have to be dry rotted
Yeah.
in order to get this
And-
structure.
I mean, this stuff is like balsa wood. You can see how easy it is for me to just put my fingernail through it.
Nice.
See that? I mean, it's just.
It's a lot of stuff around rivers, essentially.
Yeah, honestly. And just, I found a log of it like this over at the park. I just picked it up and walked out with it. It's everywhere. It's abundant and it's free. Now, with char cloth, I wanted to show you the whole. So this is a piece of jean char cloth. And what we were saying is dropping a spark onto the char cloth like that, and you've seen that method where people try to use the back of their knife. It can be difficult if the material has a very tight weave. And so you know, what's going to happen on camera here is I'm going to get it lit on the first try and totally throw everything that I'm saying out the window. But generally speaking, you know.
Yeah, you can.
See?
Oh, there's one there, but
See how they're not catching?
yeah, that should have absolutely gripped it.
And you know what? If you had a lighter weave material, like muslin or a cotton ball that you'd charred, that would definitely work better. So what I do with these, kind of these stubborn char cloths, is I tear them, and then I go back to the, you know, holding it method on the stone. And because what I want to do is where I've torn it, those ragged edges, those are fluffy enough. Those have enough surface area to catch.
Oh, bam.
Yeah, there we go. See, it's a little guy, but it'll get bigger. But it's consistent. So that's all it took. But it's because I prepared the edge of it. You always have to prepare your tinder, even if it's char cloth. Some you got to prepare more than others. So, you know, I've seen people that are, you know, they're experienced. They know how to do this. It's just when presented with some char cloth that wasn't what they were used to, they had trouble getting that to light because, again, they didn't realize it was a very tight weave.
Yeah.
And you have to tear it to get it to go. So it's just like anything. Pay attention to your tinder and realize that nothing is automatic. You know, with fire making, you're gonna have to adjust and roll with the punches. But
Awesome.
And
So
just
where
don't give up.
yeah,
That's the
Yeah.
thing about any kind of primitive fire skills. You just can't give up.
stop when you have fire. Yep. All right. So where can we get some of those strikers?
you know, you can get them on our website, emberlit.com, and they're kind of fun. We have a bunch of different patterns. The whole idea behind the different patterns is, yeah, the whole idea behind all these different patterns is just because they're cool. It's just
That
to
was
get people's
actually my
attention.
favorite.
You like
That's
the
the one
rattlesnake?
that I use. I like it because it looks like
Yeah, the
it
knuckle duster.
functions like the old school hand
Knuckle
forged
duster.
You know,
ones, and it looks like a snake.
Well, you know, the reason why I don't prefer this one per se is because my fingers.
got gorilla hands.
Yeah, I got sausages for fingers.
You little girl
it's
hands like me.
Yeah.
There
You got long ones, but it's like. So I personally like the dragon, or the basically is a P, you know. So this is our Spartan helmet. That's a
Nice.
fun one. But I like to just hold it gently like this and then strike that way, you know, or whatever.
Show me again.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll hold it like this and I just strike straight down.
Nice.
And it's the same with any of the pendant style, you know, like the owl, just straight down. So that's my favorite way. Even when I have this knuckle duster, I rarely put my fingers in it. I usually just hold it like so.
There you go.
Because it's a finesse thing. It's not, you know, you get people and they're like, it's not working. Why isn't it making sparks?
Yep.
And really, if you get the right angle and a really good sharp edge, all I gotta do is just get it just right. See, I'm throwing sparks and I'm barely putting any pressure. It's almost a function of speed. So there's a lot of sparks, but I'm not beating the crap out of it. So it takes some precision and practice, which is what we tell everybody. But then again, that's what's so fun about these types of fire making tools.
A little bit of art involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a monkey can do this. And usually it's monkeys with these that cause. Exactly. Well, that's what I tell people. You give them a lighter to start a fire, and they'll sit there and hold it under a log, and it won't light. You know, nothing will happen because they don't have to learn.
Yeah, they don't understand the concept of drying out the fuel before.
Well, they don't understand how to make tinder. They don't. You know, they think, oh, I got a flame, so I'll just put this big log on there and light it. You know.
Yeah.
But you teach them this, and it's like, okay, spark base. You got to have really fine tin. You know, you have to have a tinder to get ignition, and then from tinder you have to have kindling, and you have to have all those steps on building a proper fire.
Kind of like getting a train moving. It takes a little push, and then it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You make it too easy, and people don't have that impetus to learn how to do it properly.
It's like what Morris Kohansky said. He said any fool would not go into the woods without matches. Well, a person would be a fool if they went into the woods without matches and a lighter.
Yeah.
Because all of these skills are fun and a backup to
Yeah.
having what we have as modern technology.
But again, the problem is people think that modern technology will solve their problems. And so they go into it not even knowing how to use a lighter. So that's why I teach people this, so they can learn how to appreciate a lighter and a match,
Well,
and how to use it properly.
Not everyone has a lighter on them when they find themselves in need of a fire. So
That's true.
having that as a backup is always, you know, if you can plan for it, great. But if you haven't planned for it, it's good to know what plan B is.
Yeah. So you want to see a fast way to make charred cloth.
Let's do it. Fast way to make char cloth.
You got that magic fire device. You know, that's if you wanted to like wipe out an indigenous population, all you have to do is say, "Look, I have fire." Give them a case of these, and in a year when they've burned out, they don't remember how to make fire any other way.
It's horrible.
It's actually true. The Ray Mears went down to South America a few years ago, and they did not know how to do friction fires anymore.
And
And he sat there and taught them.
I know. Well, and it's because they, relied on magic. I got to get something a little bit tougher than my fingers.
A little less fireproof.
Do we need a book?
Now I'll just
Or are you gonna
smother
do
it.
the tin?
I'll just smother it under here. So Caleb actually taught me this from Canadian Bushcraft, and I think he learned it from Morris Kohansky actually.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
Bam.
Char cloth.
There you go.
And this is good char cloth.
Don't even need a tin.
Now, grab the stone, find a good edge with a concavity.
Every time you light a fire, all I can think is, ooh, that smell.
Hold on, I got to get that edge right there. There we go.
Bam, there you go.
Char cloth.
Now, real quick, for those of us, I'm just assuming everyone watching this knows what to do with the ember once they get it.
Oh, yeah.
What comes next?
What comes next is you better have a fire lay prepared long before you even try to get ignition. I learned that the hard way. When I got my very first bow drill coal, I was on my deck and I was huffing and puffing and sweating. And, if you look at the timestamp on the pictures, it took a long time. But I finally got a coal. And I'm like, yay, I got a coal. And I put it in my little tinder nest, and I blew it in the flame, and I had no idea where to put it. I was like, now what? And so I'm sitting there holding this thing as it's running down my arm. In fact, those scars right there, that one and that one.
Nice.
That's where it stuck to my arm and burned holes. And so I'm holding this flaming ball of debris. And my wife is running at me with a fire extinguisher. I'm thinking, she's going to hose me down with that. So luckily the barbecue was there, and I got my wits, and I threw it into the barbecue. But it was a very valuable lesson in that when you are going to go through all the work and effort to actually get ignition, you better have someplace to put it. Otherwise it's wasted. So once you have a spark, once you have an ember, once you have ignition, then you better have your tinder bundle right here, a big ball of grass and bark and debris, and you put it in there like a little squirrel, and you wrap it up, and you want to keep him warm, so you got to make sure he's covered, but you don't want to suffocate him. So that's kind of the thing. So, and then you blow on it, and you can hear it getting hotter, and you can hear it moving, and if you're not keeping him warm, then it'll just blow out. But and if you're suffocating, it'll blow out too. So the balance again. So keep him warm, give him air. And all of a sudden, burst into flame, and you can put it on your campfire, and with larger sticks and so on, off you go. I mean, that's a whole other section. Learning how to get proper tinder nests and keep them lit from spark-based ignition. That's the next step. But for this step, we've got the flint and steel and a few other little toys.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Thanks for watching TJack Survival. If this was useful to you or you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. And come check us out at emberlit.com. We've got our own little YouTube channel as well as pretty bunch of silly stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. This is Mikhail. Yeah.